Hey, we're saints. Welcome to our crucifixion live stream. Father Chris, Steve, and Greg with you. We are rocking it. Hope you are well and had a great weekend. How you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew it was coming.
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Super.
Good. I think we're going to have fun today.
I think we're going to cross all kinds of lines, but let's go for it.
Let's cross the lines.
Let's do it.
So I was teaching a lecture once at a college conference, which is an opportunity for Orthodox college students during the week between Christmas and New Year's to all come together in one place and have lectures and talk about Jesus and all of those good things. And so I was asked to come in and speak one time, and I was giving a talk about like liturgical theology. What do we do? How do we worship? All of that stuff. I mean, when I go talk places, that's usually what I end up talking about. And someone stood up and made a comment about, well, they wanted to challenge something I said. And they said, well, the fathers say blah, 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 blah. And I looked at this kid and I said, okay, and he got really upset with me. And he was like, well, the fathers say it. I said, okay, which father? Where?
Right.
And he got more upset because he couldn't tell me which father said it or where. He was just trying to tell me. So I went on this excursus that probably upset him even more and might even upset some of our viewership today, where I said the following: just because a father said it doesn't make it right. And he really was upset.
Yeah.
In the parlance of scripture, you might say he went away sorrowful that day. But I mean, the point I'm making that I was trying to impart to him is, when we talk about the fathers, we need to be a little bit specific.
Yeah.
And as Orthodox Christians, we kind of play fast and loose with the fathers often. I had a professor in seminary who would not let us do that, which is where I got the two questions: which father, where? Because that was,
Right.
if we were going to quote the fathers to our professor of patristics, we had to actually quote the fathers.
Fair.
But modern day, we kind of like morph
Right.
what we mean when we use that terminology. So with all of that is my backdrop, I throw it to you. What do we mean when we say fathers?
It's funny you say. I was just going to say, like, let's talk about, what's the reference for our faith? What and who are the fathers? What does that word patristic mean?
Yeah.
Maybe let's start by setting the context. So for our audience, most of them probably are as well, but we are Orthodox Christians, and the patristic corpus, meaning the writings of the fathers of the church, is very important to us. It is a part of what the Orthodoxy calls the holy tradition, right? So it's not something that we take lightly. I'm going to can I read this? Just that opening line.
I think so.
So this is a book, an analysis of commentary by St. John Chrysostom, who is one of the fathers. I haven't read all of it, but it's very interesting so far. But the author and translator says at the beginning, so the way that I read this, because the way we as Orthodox Christians look at the fathers and the way some of the other traditions are very different. Sorry, the other traditions look at the fathers very different. So he says the following. This is page 1. The introduction. Among modern biblical theologians, the patristic era is often regarded as an age of faulty and fantastic exegesis, which is, listen to this, Steve and Greg, which is better forgotten than studied. This is particularly true in Old Testament scholarship. While the writings of the fathers may be examined as witnesses to the text of the Greek Old Testament, their interpretations are virtually ignored. A number of reasons for this: they were pre-scientific, few knew any Hebrew, and their commentaries were sometimes weighted down by dogma and metaphysical speculation. In addition, the modern palate finds patristic Old Testament exegesis irksome for its steady diet of allegory. Right. So this author, is going on to say that a lot of modern biblical scholarship doesn't want to deal with the fathers. And this was written in 92, so modern was then. That was now 30 years ago. Can you imagine? But he goes on to say, but wait, John Chrysostom is awesome. Doesn't use allegory. He uses more metaphor and, understanding the text and da-da-da-da. So that he led in with that. But I start with that because for many, the patristic tradition is, as he said, fantastic, right? Not in a, oh my God, this is fantastic, but like, fantasy. Anyways.
Yeah.
For Orthodox Christians, the fathers are important, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we use them. We use them all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
They've been the great teachers
Yeah.
of the faith throughout the centuries.
Right.
And I think that we hold them in such regard because they are the great teachers throughout the centuries. I mean, I think about the fact that we have um, the Troparion, the hymn that we sing for the Feast of the Three Hierarchs. So on January 30th, we celebrate the feast of Gregory the Theologian, Basil the Great, John Chrysostom. Like these are pillars of the church, pillars of our theology, and we celebrate them all together in addition to their own separate feasts. And the seminary chapel where I went to school is dedicated to them. And so we would sing their hymn for that feast all the time.
Yeah.
And it's let us who love their words come together with hymns. And I mean, they're referred to as the three great torchbearers of the triune Godhead. They're referred to in all of these things, and flowing rivers of wisdom, all of this stuff. But I think it's the key is that first phrase, let us who love their words. We love their words. Where the problem starts to come in is when in our love for what they have to say and what they have said to teach the faith, we lose sight of the fact that they were teachers. And just because a teacher said something doesn't always make it right.
Yeah. So before I started by asking a question, like, let's clarify for our audience what we're talking about. And then I got lost and took us off. So what is what makes one of them a father?
Right.
No, I'm asking you.
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I mean, what makes them one of the fathers is that they were writing the theology at a time when the theology was new, was burgeoning, and is basically they've created. I mean, we could say it that way in some sense of the term, created the theology of the church as we have it today.
Well, I'd be careful because
Go for it.
Here's why I say that. So that no one pushes back on you for that statement. I know what you mean, but the idea that the fathers say that they discovered or revealed the theology, as opposed to sometimes when they take licks at the Roman Catholics with like the Immaculate Conception,
Fair.
they created that theology.
They didn't create the theology then. Let's say that they expounded and taught the theology in a way that people could understand. But where we have to be very clear is, what were they using as their reference, which was your follow-up question.
Well, before that, we still never answered that dumb question I threw out there. So I would say to define what makes a father is, although even the definition I'm about to give has been, in my mind, disproved. But let me say this. Orthodoxy would say that it would be someone, probably writing within, again, the dates are argued, but, the 1st or 2nd century AD. So someone like very early, like Ignatius of Antioch, or Polycarp of Smyrna, who were in, Ignatius is purported to have died and been martyred in 105, and some argue and say 107 AD, but right, the very beginning of the 2nd century. So, early. And it might go through, again, the dates are disputed, but basically through the 7th century, John of Damascus, he was 8th century, but 7th and 8th century. And then that would probably be, those who are writing in that time gap would be considered fathers. There are others like, Gregory Palamas, who was he 13th century, right? Or 12th century, whatever it was. He was 1300s, 14th century. So, and then, oh my gosh, I lost his name. Who's the one that did the Divine Liturgy?
Nicholas Cavasilas.
Cavasilas, some might say he's a father. He was 10th century or 11th century, whatever. Yeah. The point being, some say that there's a few others who slipped in afterwards. But the idea is that these are, the Holy Fathers are the propounders, the expounders, the proponents of, sharing or teaching, as you said, the theology of the Orthodox faith. And they would deal with issues like, and conversations, topics like the Holy Trinity, or, the incarnation of the second person of the Trinity, meaning Jesus becoming, or God, the Son of God becoming a human being in the person of Jesus. They would deal with Mariology. John of Damascus, we talked about, he dealt with iconography and how does that affect the incarnation, our understanding of the incarnation, and on and on. So they dealt with, all of these kinds of issues. And so those who are writing in that general time frame, which again I know is a long span, but would be considered a father. And when you hear the word patristic, it's because the Greek word for father, pater, right? So these are the patristic writings. It's their corpus, all of their combined writings.
Yeah.
All right.
I figured it was worth a Google.
What'd you do?
So I Googled definition of church fathers.
What it came
And it
with?
says in the AI overview, the term church fathers refers to early Christian theologians, bishops, and scholars whose writings and teachings significantly shaped Christian doctrine and practice in the first centuries of the church.
Yeah.
And some of the definitions go, they say, first through fifth centuries, all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's also important to note that there are categories within the fathers,
Right.
where you might see terms like apostolic fathers, who are the ones who were writing in that first century, the
Right.
Ignatius of Antioch.
Yeah, well said.
You might see the Cappadocian fathers written, who were writing at a very specific time. John Chrysostom, Basil the Great, Gregory of Nyssa is even thrown into the Cappadocians at times.
Not
And
Chrysostom. Gregory the theologian, you mean?
Gregory the theologian and John Chrysostom. No,
Chrysostom's not a Cappadocian.
he's not considered one of the Cappadocians.
No, Basil, John and John. Sorry. No,
Gregory and Gregory.
Thank you.
Sorry. Excuse me. I put them together because of the
They're
three
hierarchs.
hierarchs, and then, yeah. So thank you for that. But anyway, you see all these different kinds of terminology, and now I'm going to, yeah.
So here's an interesting point. Listen to this. So the AI actually gave you a good definition. It was very eloquent, nicely written. And by the way, we should say there are in the Orthodox faith fathers in the Western Church, right?
Mm-hmm.
Prior to the schism. I mean, like John Cassian, the Roman, is one of, considered an Orthodox saint. And, of course, they love to talk about St. Patrick. All right. So the clover and the Trinity. All right, whatever. In seminary, we had a conversation in our patristic course. And it was more of an argument between the professor and the students. It was a very good exercise. But his thought was technically, when we say the fathers, it is specifically referring only to the fathers of the First Ecumenical Council.
Huh.
So when you read the Synodicon on Sunday of Orthodoxy, this is the faith of the fathers, that it's specifically talking about the fathers of the First Council.
All
now,
right.
that's a great conversation. It's not one I necessarily want to get into.
Yeah.
Suffice it to say, for our conversation today, that when we as modern Christians speak of the fathers, we're not just speaking of Nicaea and the 318 there. We were talking about like that whole, gamut of authors and other stuff. All right, so now that we've beaten that horse completely dead, at least that's the working definition that you and I are going to use. Hey, Warrior Saints, thank you so much for being with us. If you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, and share. It helps us get the word out there. And if you want more, visit us at warriorsaints.org and subscribe to Understanding the Bible. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon.